When it comes to the Antichrist, there are some things we know with certainty, because the Bible makes it abundantly clear what he will do and the season that he will do it in. But there are other things about the Antichrist that are cloaked in a mystery that is slowly being revealed to our understanding as world events begin to align themselves with true Bible eschatology. The Apostle Paul tells us that right before the second coming of Christ, that man of sin, the son of perdition, or literally the son of destruction, will be revealed. The Greek word apokalupto means the veil or cover will be removed, and then everyone will know exactly who he is. In the original Greek text, Paul uses 4 definite articles, which is very unusual, to spotlight the uniqueness and the severity of this event. It should be translated, he is the man of the sin and the son, or the offspring produced by the destruction and misery coming on the earth in the last days. And what is the sin that produces the Antichrist? The next verse tells us. He will oppose and exalt himself above all that is called God or that is worshiped. In other words, he will preach against every religion, every community of faith, and everything that is worshiped. The Greek sebasma means that which is adored and honored by man. The easy translation goes on to say, and as a result, he will then even go into the temple of God, and then he will sit down there like a king, and he will tell everyone that he himself is God. The Apostle John saw this and recorded it in Revelation 13, where he tells us that the Antichrist will open his mouth in blasphemy against God, and he will blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And he will make war with the saints. Now, that's not the church saints. That's the Jewish people in Israel. The Antichrist will make war with Israel and overcome them. And he will be given exousia, authority over every tribe and every tongue and nation. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life. But here, the Apostle John uses a different word for worship. It's the Greek word proskuneo. And according to Thayer's Greek lexicon, it means to fall upon the knees and touch the ground with the forehead as a expression of profound reverence, or to make salam. And verse 15 then tells us that as many as refuse to proskuneo, fall on their knees and put their foreheads on the ground to worship and obey him, then those people will be killed. But here's the good news. The Lord still knows how to deliver the godly out of temptation and at the same time reserve the unjust and unrighteous in the day of judgment. He can do both at the same time. And God has a plan, just like he did for Lot, just like he did for Noah, and just like he did for the children of Israel when they were coming out of 400 years of slavery. He rescued them at the same time he was pouring out judgment. And so it will be in these last days. Where will the Antichrist come from? The prophet Daniel records his first vision in chapter 7 of that book. He had a vision of 4 great beasts rising out of the sea that represented the 4 world empires that would rule over Israel over 2,000 years ago. And the 4th beast had 10 horns that was later revealed to Daniel to represent 10 kings that would arise in the latter days, in the last days, the days that you and I are living in right now. And from among those 10 horns, one little horn will rise up and begin to speak blasphemy against God and against the people of God, the people of Israel, just like Paul and John would write later. The 4th beast is considered to be the Roman Empire. And those 10 kings or 10 countries that will form a coalition in the last days, in the day you and I are living in right now. And it's from that coalition that the little horn or the Antichrist will arise. Then in Daniel 8, Daniel had his second vision. Another vision where he sees this time a he-goat coming from the west that has a notable strong horn in between his eyes. This is later revealed to Daniel by the angel that this is the Grecian Empire, and the horn represents Alexander the Great. Now, all of this was revealed to Daniel 150 years before Alexander the Great was even born. The accuracy of his prophecies are amazing. And as Daniel continued to watch, the great horn was broken, just like Alexander died unexpectedly at a very young age. And Daniel saw 4 notable horns sprout up afterwards, which prophesied the 4 generals that history records divided up the Grecian Empire and each ruled over a separate region. And then Daniel saw another little horn come forth, again, symbolic of the Antichrist, that waxed exceeding great and moved against the pleasant land, Israel, where he came against the temple and caused the daily sacrifice to be taken away. Again, just like Paul and Jesus and John already prophesied. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when transgressors are come to the full, then a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences will stand up, and he will magnify himself in his heart, and through peace he will destroy many. You see, the Bible teaches the Antichrist does not start off being a warmonger. He begins by being a prince of peace. And I personally believe that it is the Antichrist and the demonic system that surrounds him that will negotiate a peace agreement in the Middle East that's going to settle all the issues that we're struggling with right now. It's a peace agreement that I believe will allow the Jews to build their temple on the Temple Mount right next to the Dome of the Rock. You said, oh, that'll never happen. Well, let's wait and see. When John was caught up in the Spirit, an angel told him, rise and measure the temple of God, talking about the future temple that's going to be built in these last days. Measure the temple and measure the altar in front of the temple and them that worship therein. But the court, the outside court, the largest land area of the temple system, don't measure that, because it's been given to the Gentiles. And they shall tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months or 3.5 years. He's talking about the Gentiles, the non-Jews, are going to continue to control much of the Temple Mount, but there'll be room made through a peace agreement that I believe the Antichrist will make. And then the angel went on to say, the angel Gabriel, at the time of the end, all these things will come to pass. And behold, I will make you know what shall be in the last end of the great wrath, for at the appointed time, at the Moed, the end shall begin. So Daniel saw a vision where the Roman Empire would birth and produce and bring forth the Antichrist in the latter days. And then later he saw a vision where the Grecian Empire would birth or produce the Antichrist type figure in the last days. So I did this the first time 40 years ago. You take a map of the Roman Empire and you overlay it with a map of the territory that the Greek Empire controlled, and you can get an idea from what country the Antichrist is going to come from. And as you can easily see, all of the horns that Daniel saw back then are today Muslim countries, ruled by some form of Islamic Sharia law. Another thing that's interesting is to compare all the flags of these countries with the 4 horses of the apocalypse mentioned by the Apostle John in Revelation chapter 6. When the seals are being opened, first there is a white horse, a red horse, then a black horse, and the 4th seal is a pale horse, which is translated in the original Greek text from the word chloros and means green. Now, I know having a green horse is not natural, but the things that the Antichrist are going to do in the last days are not natural. The green, the red, the black, and the white. I think the Lord is telling us something. He's revealing to us another part of the mystery that surrounds the Antichrist. Now notice that the flag that represents Saudi Arabia has some words written on it. It's called the Shahada, the Muslim profession of faith, and it says, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of God. Muhammad was born in 570 AD in the town of Mecca, which today is a city located in Saudi Arabia. And through a supernatural encounter with an angel who he believed to be Gabriel, Muhammad received the words that became the Quran, and he began the religion that we know as Islam today. And along with the Quran, another of Muslims' holy books is the Hadith, which is a book of the sayings and the beliefs attributed to the prophet and to other prophets. It's in the Hadith that we are introduced to a man the Muslims call the Mahdi. The Mahdi is known as the 12th Imam, and that's who the Muslims are looking to come on the earth and bring peace to the earth. He is Islam's messianic figure who will appear at the end of times in the time we're living in now, and he will rid the world of evil, of injustice, and of every other false religion. All religions but Islam are false religions. He is said to be a descendant of Muhammad, and when he comes, he will restore true Islam and the kingdom of Allah to the whole world. That's the goal. And he will do it through Sharia law, by eliminating the pigs and the infidels. That's the Jews and the Goyim, or the Gentile nations that refuse to bow their knee to his system. And then, according to the Holy Scriptures and the Quran, Jesus will return to help the Mahdi destroy the Dajjal, Islam's version of the Antichrist. And together, Jesus and the Mahdi will establish a new final caliphate ruling the world. It's amazing how the Apostle John saw much of this happening in his vision that he wrote in the book of Revelation 500 years before Muhammad was even born. John wrote about it in Revelation chapter 13. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns. And upon his heads the name of blasphemy, blasphemia. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And the world worshiped the dragon, the devil, which gave power to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And in Revelation 13:5, it says, "And a power was given unto him to continue for 42 months, or 3.5 years. This is the last 3.5 years of the tribulation before Jesus comes. And what will he be doing for 3.5 years? Look at verse 9. "And all that dwell on the earth are going to be worshiping him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life." Proskuneo. They're going to bow on their knees, put their foreheads on the ground, and pay obedience and serve him with all of their heart. They're going to make salam. And verse 15 says that as many as do not proskuneo and bow their knees and put their head on the ground will be killed. But here's the good news. God knows how to save the righteous and how to punish the unrighteous at the same time. And Paul wrote in 2 Thessalonians 2:8, "And then when the wicked one is finally revealed, that the Lord will consume him with the spirit of his mouth and destroy him with the brightness of his coming when he comes again. And he will save those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life." So you need to make sure that your name is written in the Lamb's book. 7 heads and 10 horns. It's interesting that the Apostle John, the only one to use the term Antichrist in the New Testament, and he only used it in 1st and 2nd John. He used it to talk about the spirit of the Antichrist, the backsliders that would fall away and those that would renounce Jesus. But he never used the word Antichrist here in Revelation 13 when it seems like it's appropriate. So there's something that's missing. There's something we don't understand. The Antichrist shows up as one of the heads, and the image of the beast is made and people worship it, but there's something missing. I'm going to close with this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the country we call Saudi Arabia. Although the peninsula of Arabia and many nations and kings and provinces have been around for thousands of years, the kingdom of Saudi Arabia was founded only in 1932, almost 90 years ago, by King Ibn Saud, when he united 4 regions in the Arabian Peninsula into one single state. And he did it through a series of conquests and war, with the capture of his ancestral home, Riyadh. And then later, the next 20 or so years, he conquered the regions around Mecca and Medina, which are the birthplace and the home of the prophet Muhammad. And when the unification was complete, four became one. And King Ibn Saud established a Wahhabi-dominated form of government. Saudi Arabia is a monarchy. It has a king based on Islamic Sharia law, where the king is the head of state and he appoints a crown prince as a type of prime minister to help him govern the country. Sharia law is based on the scriptures in Islam. Sharia law identifies both the nature and the goals of Saudi Arabia, the Islamic State. This is the reason on its flag are the words, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of God." In the 90 years since its founding, Saudi Arabia has had 7 heads, 7 kings governing the country, beginning with the first one up to the one serving today, King Salman. 7 heads. But remember, the first head, the first king, defeated 3 other regions. So we could say that Saudi Arabia has 7 heads, but it has 10 horns. Now, I'm not saying that Saudi Arabia is definitely the first beast Daniel saw in Revelation 13. I don't know, but it sure is interesting, and it's something to keep an eye on in these last days. In 2022, the king appointed Prince Mohammed bin Salman, they call him MBS, as the crown prince and the prime minister of Saudi Arabia, who I watched on Fox News in September of 2023 in an interview that they conducted, where MBS said, "We are moving closer each day toward reaching a normalization deal with Israel. We're going to make a peace deal with Israel." Then in another interview, I heard him say that it is his dream to unite Mecca with Jerusalem. So the 3 holiest places of Islam are under one rule. It's his dream. It's his goal. I heard other people said that he has in private compared himself to Alexander the Great, that he wants to be like Alexandra, a great world leader. And so as they're moving towards making peace, and they probably were just a few months away from doing it, then Hamas invaded Israel on October 6th, and everything was put on hold. The controversy of Jerusalem took charge. I believe that Prince Mohammed, MBS, or someone just like him, is secretly negotiating right now with all the different factions, and they're going to come together with an agreement, a peace agreement, and part of that is going to allow the Jews to build the 3rd temple on the Temple Mount, right next to the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and there'll be peace. Can anybody fight against this man in this system? This will be one of the identifiers of the Antichrist and his system of government. Through peace, he will deceive many. In Revelation 11, and the angel told John, "Rise and measure the temple of God and measure the altar. But the court which is without the temple, don't measure it, because it's been given to the Gentiles, the non-Jews, for 3.5 years until the time of the end." The question is, are you ready for the time of the end? Are you prepared to go through what we're about to go through? I'm talking in just a handful of years, we're going to see these things. I believe by 2030, we're going to begin to see the preparation or the building of the temple in Jerusalem. And so there is going to be a peace agreement made. And when that happens, then the 7-year tribulation countdown begins. Is your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life? All you got to do is sincerely turn your heart over to the Lord and ask him to come in and change every part of your life and walk away from your past life and the sin that ruled it and the darkness you've been involved in, and submit yourself unto the Lord Jesus Christ. Then your name can be written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and you'll be one of those that God will deliver in these final days of judgment.